This is the number one argument I used to use against Christians. Watch.
If you don't trust the Bible and ancient texts, what could make you believe in the resurrection?
If you don't, well, I guess my question would be, why wouldn't you trust these ancient texts if you evaluate them and you come to the conclusion they're historically reliable? Why would this be invented?
Frank Turek is a really incredible apologist, but listen to how he answers this question, and seriously memorize it, because when someone comes at you with this, like Peter 3:15 says, always be prepared to have a defense. This is how you answer it. Gentle, but assertively. Because people have to know this isn't some fairy tale or myth. This is real. It's real.
You don't come to the conclusion that they're historically reliable.
Okay, my question would be, why do you think they're not?
Because they were written 100, 200 years later.
Later than what?
Later than when Jesus was crucified.
Where did you come up with those dates?
Google.
Huh?
I just looked it up. It was like 100. It was written, or published, the Hebrew Bible was published around 100 AC. He was killed in 30 AC. The life expectancy is probably shorter then. And instead it was published, so that's like 7 years. They were already 30 or 40, so they're either old and senile or dead, so.
Run those dates by me again.
It was 100 when the Hebrew Bible was published about, because we don't actually know. And then 30 when he was killed.
The Hebrew Bible, you mean the Old Testament?
No, it said, well, how would they publish the Old Testament after he died?
No, we have Old Testament documents prior to Jesus.
Okay.
We have the Septuagint, which was 250 BC. So that's 250 years prior to Jesus. We have the whole, we have Dead Sea Scrolls.
I don't know where my tour group is, but that is the Dead Sea right there. And I'll show you where they found the actual scrolls. Check this out. In these mountains there are tombs everywhere, caves. I mean, that's where they live, the ascent. Caves in there. Wow. That is amazing.
We have a scroll, the entire book of Isaiah from like 150 BC. So the Old Testament's written before Jesus. You get that, right?
Yeah, but when was it published? Do you know?
What do you mean published?
Well, yeah, I can show you what it said. Like it said it was.
If it's on the internet, it's got to be true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when was the Bible published?
Okay. First of all, the documents we call the New Testament were written anywhere between, say, 40 AD and I believe 70 AD. Okay? Jesus was crucified in 33 AD. Okay? Now, the sources inside those documents go all the way back to the event of the resurrection itself. In fact, the earliest evidence for the resurrection is recorded in a passage we call 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 to 8, where Paul says, what I received of first importance I pass on to you.
He's talking about in Corinthians when Paul first received the message. And if you look at it, the way it's written and the way Jewish history was, it was received orally. But how it's in meter, meaning this is how it happened, rose from the dead according to the scriptures, it all matches. And famous atheists like New Testament scholar Bart Ehrman, he says that this passage is evidence that the message of Jesus resurrecting from the dead happened within months of the cross. It was being spread within months of the cross.
So Paul is writing in about 55 AD to the church at Corinth in Greece, and he's quoting a section that was memorized that even atheistic scholars agree goes all the way back near 33 AD. And that section talks about who Jesus appeared to after he was resurrected.
Paul says, look, I saw him, other people saw him, but over 500 people saw him, many of whom are still alive. Meaning, if you don't believe me, go ask them. Who would do that with that much confidence?
So, despite the fact that Paul is writing it in 55 AD, about 22 years after the resurrection event, the data that Paul is writing down goes all the way back to the event itself.
If I've earned it, could you do me a favor and click like, but really, really big favor. There's a new feature where you can click boost or something like that. It really helps, especially small YouTube Christian channels like this one. It helps us spread the word. And also, if you're on this same journey and you want to equip your faith and travel with someone as we prepare the way, please feel free to subscribe. It'd be an honor. God bless.
It would be like today if you wanted to write a history of, say, 9/11, which is 22 years ago. And you went and interviewed eyewitnesses. Some of them are in this room. And they told you what happened. Would it matter that you wrote it 22 years later? Or would the source from the event itself be authoritative?
You could lose it in translation from what they saw, memorized for 20 years, and then you publish.
You could misremember things, but there's something known as an impact event. An impact event is something you don't forget. Now, if Jesus rose from the dead, do you think that would have been an impact event?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think they would have forgotten about it? Do you think they would have any trouble remembering what he said and did?
Possibly.
Probably not, right? 7 names from the 1st century have been found in the dirt that are mentioned in the crucifixion account of Jesus. All told, there are more than 30 names in the New Testament that have been found in archaeology and other writings from the time. I don't know where you're reading this kind of thing, but the New Testament documents are written within the lifetime of the eyewitnesses, by eyewitnesses or people that knew eyewitnesses. For example, Luke, who was a doctor and interviewed eyewitnesses, actually puts forth a very accurate account of what he said he saw, and you can verify this by looking at archaeological remains and geographic remains and topography from the Gospel of Luke and also the book of Acts. In fact, there's 84 details in the book of Acts alone that have been proven to be eyewitness data just from chapter 13 to chapter 28, the end of the book. You're right. You know, if this was 100 or 200 years later, we might be skeptical of it. But when we have eyewitnesses and eyewitness data that can be confirmed, that's telling us that this is not an invented story.
We have to know how to do this, how to combat these types of objections. Because Christianity is unlike any other religion because it's based on one event happening in history, the resurrection. And if the resurrection didn't happen, then our faith is meaningless, as Paul says. But here's the thing. The resurrection did happen, and it's provable. And if someone was around talking, died, and rose from the dead, I'm gonna listen to what he said. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through him. Thank you so much for watching. It's real. Jesus is real. He's realer than gravity. I promise. God bless.